It's 11th of November 2023, everyone, and it's election day in Bayelsa, Imo, and Kogi states, where 5.1 million voters who have collected their PVCs will decide by the power of the ballot who the next governor will be in these states. Welcome to a live coverage of the election, where we'll be monitoring events on the field from start to finish. Our reporters are all across the states, and we'll be bringing us up to date with events as the events unfold today. We have our guests lined up, and they will also be joining us shortly on the show. INEC says all is set, and that it has fine-tuned its process from the last election in February. The security agencies have also given their words, but in a few minutes' time will tell. I am Nifemi Oguntoye, and our correspondents in all of the 55 local government areas have also been up and doing, following this development very closely. Let's begin with the backstory to this election. The Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo governorship elections are 3 out of the 9 off-season elections that are currently conducted in Nigeria. In Kogi, the off-season election resulted from a court decision invalidating the results of the 2007 governorship election and ordering that a fresh election be conducted on 29th March 2008. That's months after the inauguration of the governor at that time. The court decision changed the electoral cycle of the state, with a fresh election conducted outside the usual electoral cycle for the general elections in the country. In Bayelsa, the court ruled for a fresh election to be conducted in 2008, invalidating the 2007 governorship election. The following governorship election in both states were held between November and December, and that's months after general elections in 2011, 2015, and 2019. All of these done to correspond with the constitutional requirement of governorship elections holding not earlier than 150 days, but not later than 30 days to the date of expiration of office of the incumbent governor. Now, let's talk about Imo State. When 2019, one of the states with off-cycle governorship elections also being added to the list, with a Supreme Court ruling in January 2022, months after the inauguration of the then governor. The Supreme Court's decision invalidated the outcome of the 2019 Imo governorship election, with a new winner declared. Today, we'll witness the first off-season governorship elections post the 2023 general elections, and the first off-cycle election to be held in Imo State. Imo has the highest numbers in this election, with 2,419,922 registered voters, out of which 2,419,922 have collected their PVCs. Some 101,000 PVCs remain uncollected in the southeastern state, and we're looking forward to see how many of those who have collected their PVCs will indeed turn out today, following the abysmal numbers we recorded earlier in February, where less than 25% of voters with PVCs came out for the presidential election. In Kogi, 1,932,654 are registered to vote in this election, out of which 1,833,160 have collected their PVCs. There are 99,494 uncollected PVCs in that part of the country. Bayelsa has 1,056,862 registered voters. 1,017,613, we understand, have collected their permanent voter cards, and only 39,000 plus PVCs haven't been collected in Bayelsa. Hopefully that speaks to the political awareness of the voters in this election, and we're all counting on an improved participation following the voter apathy we experienced earlier in the year. A quick update for you. A boat carried election personnel to registration area 17 in Koluama, that's in southern Ijo local government area, we understand capsized yesterday. Fortunately, no life was lost, as all the election personnel, numbering 12, as well as the boat operator, were rescued. INEC officials revealed in a statement that election result sheets, power banks, and luggage containing personal effects of staff have been lost to the sea. So the total number of registered voters in that affected area is 5,368, and the number of PVCs collected, we understand, is 5,311. INEC is also saying that it's making efforts to ensure that the election hold in the affected area. Another development from that part of the country is that INEC supervising presiding officer assigned to registration area 06, that's Osioma in Sagbama local government area, was abducted while waiting to board a boat at Amasoma Jetty. Security agencies, we understand, have been notified, and there is no update yet on rescue operations. Let's turn to Bayelsa State, where correspondent Sarah Ayeku is standing by. Sarah, it's 8 minutes past 7. Walk us through what the situation report is where you are.
Of course, it's a slow start to this morning, election day here in Bayelsa State, and it's a bit foggy, hazy here in Goa. I'm in the state capital, where we're going to have majority of the votes come out when you take a look at the 8 local governments in Bayelsa State. And so a development story from last night is that a boat conveying election duty personnel capsized in Southern Ijaw local government, which is a local government that is not accessible to by road to a lot of people. You can't access Southern Ijaw local government. You can only do that by sea. And so this is not the first time we've seen a boat capsize and a boat conveying election officials, capsizing at that area. But what we see right now is that INEC has said that they will try as much as possible to ensure that the election materials that were lost at sea are replaced from the headquarters here in Goa and taken down to Southern Ijaw local government. We're also expecting to see the police give us an update on the supervising presiding officer who was abducted yesterday while he was at the Amasoma Jetty. Earlier this morning, I had called the Commissioner of Police. He said that we'll get an update pretty soon as to what rescue operation has been put in place to ensure that this person is rescued from his so-called abductors. Another update is that we're hoping to also see 1 million, a little over 1 million voters come out to the 2,242 polling units here in Bayelsa State to elect the next governor of the state. It's a pretty tight race, especially for the contenders. I'm talking about the 2 major political parties here in Bayelsa State. It's a tight race, and fingers are crossed as to how INEC would fare in this election. Of course, they have something to prove going after the February election, as the presidential election and the senatorial elections that we had across the country. They also have something to prove, which is to gain the trust, from the Nigerian public as to how they would conduct this particular election. Also, the police, have something to prove. Just yesterday and a couple of days before today, we saw groups protesting and also asking for the removal of the Commissioner of Police, that's Tolani Alausa, here in Bayelsa State. And so we're hoping to see, and the police has said that this pre-election issues should not be a determinant or should not be a way to judge the police preparedness for this election. As you know, that 27,000 police officers have been deployed for this election, and that's aside the other paramilitary agencies that we're going to see at this election. So right now, we're not too far from the police command headquarters. If you see the road leading to the police command headquarters, you see the barricade and slight activity happening there. We've seen a barrage of police officers, go around the city, coming from this area to the other parts of the state capital, just to ensure that they kickstart their patrol on time before election starts at 8:30 a.m. And so we see people moving around, some trying to make the last trip to their polling units and ensure that they're settled for election and wait for INEC officials to resume at 8:30 a.m. So from what we've gathered from INEC, they've also told us that all of the materials are at the various rack centers. So we expect that by now at the rack centers, most of the materials will be out to the various polling units, and INEC officials will already be setting up there, if any.
Looks good from where you are, Sarah. It also feels like it might be cold, but with what the weather looks like this morning, we can see some police personnel driving just behind you. The curfew began at midnight, and according to the police, there will be restriction of movement till 6 p.m. Traveling to where you are this morning, walk us through what you were able to observe as regards these restrictions.
I think for a lot of people, you know, a day like this is just a day of rest. And we're hoping that we would not get the voter apathy that we saw in February presidential election today, because we're expecting to see that since it's the governorship election, people are enthusiastic. For now, Nifemi, people are decided. It's just a very slight percentage of people remain undecided as to who they will vote for this morning. And so a lot of persons I've spoken with a couple of days back, even before today, say they are decided. They made up their mind like before now to elect who they feel is the right person for them. That's the person that will steer the affairs of the state in the next 4 years. So they are decided voters. A lot of people here are decided. They know who they want to vote for out of the 16 candidates. And you know, the 16 candidates more are like brothers and sisters in the state, because you know that this is the Uche nation. The more, all of them are from the same extraction. So one of the messages, you know, from INEC is that these contenders should know, and particularly the youths who are the DIG in charge of this election had said that they are the vanguards of political violence, should know that apart from today, these contenders are brothers and sisters, and so there should not be a reason for violence. The fact that we have this huge number of persons vying for the governorship position shows that only one person can win, and so we're going to have 15 losers, sadly, for this election. So anybody that does not want to lose the election should not have been in the election in the first place. And so we're expecting to see that a lot of voters will come out, since this is their own governorship election, who they want to vote for, particularly show their support for their candidate.
I agree with you. Bayelsa can only have one governor at a time. I've spoken myself with some of the candidates who mentioned that they are ready to, you know, acknowledge or accept defeat as long as they have the persuasion that the process itself is credible. What is the timeline for the voting based on INEC's guideline? Accreditation is expected to start by 8 a.m., right?
So for here, accreditation will start by 8:30 a.m. Election starts 8:30 a.m. So you know that immediately you are accredited, you go vote almost simultaneously. And so what we're expected to see is that elections probably by end pretty soon, particularly for the local governments on land. But where the problem is the local governments which are across the water. We're talking Southern Ijaw, Brass, namely, and all the, particularly the flashpoints that the police had highlighted. 5 out of 8 local governments, Nifemi, the police said that these are flashpoints, although they're also focusing their security watch on the other 3 local governments. I'm talking these flashpoints, I'm talking Sagbama, Nembe, Southern Ijaw, Brass, Kolokuma, Okokuma, and these are the local governments that they are actually watching closely. But a lot of persons have even said, from what I've gathered, you know, from the indigents here, they say that they are even scared to go to a place like Southern Ijaw, for instance, because of the violence they've heard in those places. Even some persons are being skeptical about going to a place like Brass, for instance, where one of the major contenders is from. So we're expecting to see that the police will, of course, up their game, given the number of personnel that they've deployed for this election. Security concerns, of course, election observers have raised security concerns as to these local governments, which are the local governments that usually delay a collation. Like in 2019, if you remember, in Southern Ijaw, for instance, there was a delay, you know, as to the collation of results. They had to bring it down here to, you know, go out to complete the collation of results. So we're expecting that when election starts 8:30 a.m., INEC will, of course, to have their national commissioners that will be going on patrol to ensure that the beavers machine, which is a major issue, a major decider here in the election, will be working effectively, will function. They're also assuring residents in Bayelsa State that 8:30 elections would start, 2:30 elections would end, particularly for those who are on the queue. If you're on the queue before 2:30, you'll be allowed to vote, but if you're not on the queue before 2:30, you wouldn't be allowed to vote. So we're expecting that this process would last from 8:30 to 2:30 p.m. and we're also expecting, to see INEC officials make that statement as to how the collation would commence, because that's one major issue here in Bayelsa State. Collation of results is the biggest issue.
What are you hearing from INEC as regards its operation in that regard? Some resident electoral commissioners have talked about electronic collation, which sounds a little bit alien to what we're used to in the past. Are there any modification that you're hearing about, Sarah?
What we're going to see today is nothing. It's not really different from what we saw in the presidential election. So we're expecting to see that when you use the BVAS machine to confirm if you're a voter in a particular polling unit and to also ascertain the number of voters in that polling unit, you go ahead, you cast your vote, and then wait for the votes to be counted by 2:30 p.m. So we're expecting that even while the party agents would wait for the collation of results at the polling unit level, we're also expecting to see that this results now from the polling unit would be taken, as a picture would be taken and uploaded to IREV. Now, from what I gathered from the INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner, he had said that the IREV is not necessarily a collation tool. It's just to show that this was the result at this polling unit. And so the collation continues at the registration area, that's the RAP, and then the ward level, and then they bring it down to the state capital. So collation necessarily, we're hoping that would be faster this time around because of the innovation that the INEC had employed for the February elections. We're also expecting that while we await the results from these local governments, particularly those across the waters, we're expecting that the security situation there would also be monitored and it would not deter the outcome of this election. But another thing that election observers had raised is that they are hoping that persons with disability would be catered for in this election. But we got an assurance from the Resident Electoral Commissioner saying that that aspect of this election has been catered for, knowing that these voters are initially registered as persons with disability. That's at the point of registering, at the point of voter registration, they are already registered as persons with disability. And so we're not expecting to see aid equipment at all of the 2,242 polling units. We're expecting to see aid equipment for persons with disability only at polling units where you have persons with disability. So they have been able to identify these polling units, and that's where they will be able to cater to persons with disabilities. So for now, INEC, we're waiting for them to give us an update, of course, as to the issue that happened yesterday, which was how they would sort out the registration area in Southern Nigeria local government. We're also hoping to hear from them what would be different this time, how they would handle the peculiarities here in Bayelsa State.
You have spoken with the people, a cross-section of the people since you got to Yenagoa. Just how excited are they about this election, and what's the confidence level like, particularly with the security challenges you highlighted earlier?
It's a very interesting state, particularly, Nifemi, if you take a look at the political history of the state and how most of them have been sworn to a certain political party, since the democratic rule. And so sometimes it's pretty interesting how some of them seems to be, should I say, die-hard fans for some of these political parties. Transcending political parties, some of them are die-hard fans of these individuals, that's these contenders in the race. They're die-hard fans, and so when you speak with them, they are decided, they know who they want to vote for. They are of course excited that today, they are actually going to be making history again today and deciding who will steer the affairs of the state in the next 4 years. So the people are excited. we're hoping that we would not get the voter apathy, because while I was at a dry clean, a laundry store yesterday, we saw some young people actually talk about today and how they're excited about voting. But then there were some sections of saying that they are not bothered about who eventually emerges governor of the state. But for the older generation now, you see that they know who they want to elect, who they want to vote for in this election. But the younger generation now are probably just concerned about some other things as to who will bring food to their table, who would sort out their school fees and all that stuff. What they're really concerned about is the economic situation of the country. As you know, that Bayelsa State has been identified as one of the multidimensionally poor states in Nigeria, despite the oil-rich status it occupies. And so what we're hoping to see is that based on the canvas nature of the civil society organizations, and based on what the education and INEC has given voters over months, in the last months, we're hoping that they will change their mind, and then come out and vote for the candidates of their choice.
Hold that thought, Sarah. I'll be back with you shortly. Let's also turn now to Owerri, where Abimbola Agbebiyi is standing by. Abimbola, what's the situation like where you are this morning?
Yes, Nifemi, good morning, Nifemi. Of course, the long-awaited, the much talked about off-season election is finally here in Imo State, and this is the mood in Owerri, the Imo State capital, this morning. There is calm. On our way down here, there's a heavy security presence. At every checkpoint, we had to identify ourselves, show our press tag. Of course, the Independent National Electoral Commission had told us that 44 national and 2 international media organizations were accredited for this exercise, of which 242 journalists are deployed, to the different parts of the state. Of course, on the part of the police, we have also been told that 25,565 personnel, have been deployed to the 27 local government areas in the state, and of course, 33 units of police force, are on the ground. Of course, that's a heavy security presence, according to the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Frank Uba, who have tried to assure residents of Imo State that this is not done to intimidate them, but of course, to assure them of safety of the locations and environments where this exercise will be taking place. Of course, 18 political parties, like we know it, will be participating in this election this time, and of course 2,318,919 permanent voter card, that's representing 95.8% of registered voters have been collected. And of course, 4,720, polling units. Polling will be taking place in 4,720 polling units this morning, out of the 4,758 polling units. So we expect that, all that has been said, INEC had said that is ready for this poll. We expect that they will live up to expectations, this time around. Also, 135 international election observers, national observers and international observers have been accredited, to monitor this exercise. I want to believe that all of this is done to ensure that only accredited persons, are given access, have access to the polling units and, of course, the collation center this morning. Also, preferential treatment, or do I say special consideration, is being given to persons living with disability. There's a special device that is being kept for them, due to the situation. And, of course, that's to show you that INEC, INEC is ready, and they are saying that this is part of their commitment to ensure that it's inclusivity in this election. So we wait to see how things will play out as, we draw close to the scheduled time for this election. Nifemi.
Talk about the scheduled time. What's the timeline? What is INEC saying? When is accreditation and voting expected to begin where you are?
All right, of course, accreditation and voting is expected to begin at 8 a.m. We are yet to move to the polling units, and then, of course, we could see people coming out of their houses, moving to the various polling units. So we expect that what happened in the last election, which a lot of people have talked about, talking about arrival of electoral material, election materials and all of that, will be checked this time around. I mean, INEC had gone all out to tell us that this time, of course, they said they have reviewed all the errors, recorded in the last election, and they have promised to improve on the processes and procedures of the election. So we expect that there will be some positive, improvement on the election this time around, as they have said. And we also expect that the security agencies, like they have tried to assure us, will live up to expectation in terms of ensuring that the lives of the people and, of course, election materials, are secure. At this election, Nifemi.
Trust me, Nigerians are counting on all of those promises. I can tell that people are also finding their way behind you. It's hard to tell if they are making their way to the polling units. But you talked about a heavy presence of security on your way to where you are. What has been the engagement like? What is their rule of engagement? Can you tell if they are allowing free passage of people this morning?
All right, so we have been to 3 locations where we were stopped, by the security officials, at those places. And I told you earlier that we had to identify ourselves by showing our press tag. Of course, some person who are also trying to move, they had to stop them to ask them questions. Where are you going to? And all of that. We observed that some buses who have no business being on the road were also stopped. Some had to turn back because they had passengers in them. I guess they have some place, they are going to. They had some had to turn back, citing, security officials ahead of them. So we do hope that things will go smoothly as they have promised us this time. Of course, we wait to see how things pan out, as we draw close to the election time. Nifemi.
Abimbola live for us in Owerri. Sarah is live in Yenagoa. Hold on. We won't let you go yet. Hopefully, Sarah, that, like you mentioned earlier, collation will happen faster than it did the last time, so that journalists won't have to wait all night to watch the counting and the final announcement of results. But let me also introduce our guest, Jide, public affairs analyst, joins us live from our Abuja studio. Joseph Evah is Niger Delta activist, is live for us in our studio in Lagos. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us on the program this morning. Let me begin with you, Mr. Ojo. Exciting development we're following in Owerri and Yenagoa. How do you feel about preparations, in the days leading to this exercise, both on the part of the police and INEC?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. It's a great honor and privilege to be on this platform, this eventful day, 11/11. So INEC announced the date for this election over 1 year ago, and we thought it will never come. When you give a very long notice, it's like, why are they announcing this so early? This is like Ondo and Edo now, announcement has been made, and yet it's going to be in 2024. But that's just to put all the critical stakeholders on notice, so everybody gets to prepare adequately for their own role in the electoral process. So INEC engaged in periodic briefing. They told us what they are doing. There are stakeholders meetings. There are quarterly meetings with different critical stakeholders, including the media, the political parties, the civil society organizations, security agents, all of them. Periodically, INEC was meeting with those people and giving updates. And of course, we know that more than 6 months ago, candidates' nomination process took place among the 18 political parties, and thereafter, arising from Electoral 2022, you now have 150 days of campaign, which is unprecedented, because in the 2010 Electoral Act, you campaign for 90 days. But this time around, you now have a very long period of campaigning, which is 150 days. So we have also had civil society, civil society organization engaging in pre-election observation. At least they were able to tell us the PVC collection window that was opened ahead of the election, because INEC having suspended the continuous registration exercise, they didn't do any registration ahead of this, but what they did was, for those who have not collected, they gave them a window of period to collect. And civil society organizations also let us know about incidences, whether in terms of electoral violence or voter inducement, or what is happening around the campaigns. So we get to know this from the media and from the civil society. So the media has also keyed in, giving regular updates, observing the process, reporting on the process. So I should say all is set, but all eyes is not just on INEC today. All eyes is on the contestants, the political party chieftains, the INEC officials, the polling agents, because Nifemi, truth is, credibility or otherwise of election is not just on the referee or the electoral management body. I've said this time and again. If the political class refuse to play by the rules, there's practically little or nothing the electoral management body could do. For instance, INEC does not have power to make arrest. You know that for certain. INEC does not have power to make arrest. INEC can only ask, for instance, if there is a chaos at the polling unit, INEC official cannot hold somebody and say, I'm arresting you. No.
Which is very critical because, interestingly, we had a conversation with the first PRO last night who mentioned that the police officer attached to each polling unit cannot even make an arrest except instructed by the electoral officer. So it's hard to tell how this works between the two agencies. I was asking him if there is a situation of vote buying or violence. What does the police officer, do? Because they are not allowed to carry arms at the polling units. And he says, well, he does nothing except is asked to act by the electoral officer.
That is not right. That is not completely true. Even though the Electoral Act has asked that the presiding officer can order the arrest of anybody trying to disrupt
the process. Yes.
But don't forget, Nifemi, there is a law that backs police to restore law and order beyond election. Are you saying that, so if there is violence, there is shooting, you wait as a police officer in that polling unit, you wait until the presiding officer calls you and says, go and arrest him? No, you have a role to play that goes beyond the elections. So, vote buying is a crime. The presiding officer don't have to tell you, go and arrest those people who are trying to buy votes. No, I think the first PRO may not be too conversant with the provision of the law. Yes, that section is there, that in a situation where there is rowdiness or somebody is trying to misbehave, maybe a poll agent, maybe an electorate, you can order. But you, as a security agent, have a primary responsibility of restoring law and order that is generally entrenched in the Constitution, in the Police Act, and every other regulation, which is even superior to the Electoral Act. I don't know whether I'm making sense. So you don't wait. If there is shooting now, you don't expect, when the presiding officer is also trying to run for cover. So he will be waiting. So you as a police officer will just fold your hand. And so after all, the presiding officer hasn't asked me to effect that. No, that would be absurd. I think the law covers the police. Their presence there is to ensure law and order. So any destruction of law and order, even where they have not been so ordered by the presiding officer, they should not wait until that order is given.
But like you said, the burden of responsibility lies on the multi-stakeholders in this election. And we're looking forward to how they will act responsibly. But talking about the police, we've seen a massive deployment in all of the 3 states, 27,000 in Bayelsa, 40,000 in Kogi, and I think about 25,000 plus in Imo State. So there are mixed feelings. There are some who are saying this is over militarizing the process, but also the experiences we've had, the stories we've gathered days before this election speaks to why there is need to show force if peace is going to be the order of the day. Hold that thought. Let's turn to Lagos State, where Joseph Evah is also joining us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Evah. Thank you for joining us on the conversation. Talk to us about what you think about off-cycle elections. There are about 9 of them in Nigeria where the court had interrupted the process and they now have to return to the polls at a date different from the general election. How much of impact is this having on the electoral process, and what are the pros and cons for you?
Well, thank you very much. I want to first of all greet my people in Bayelsa. Today is your elections. Let us carry out these political activities in a matured way so that we have the courage to tell other Nigerians that we are well organized. Please let us be peaceful. Make sure that you vote for your candidates, and also make sure that there is no fighting, no violence. No violence. The signals coming from Bayelsa yesterday, especially from Sagwama area, about INEC official materials stolen or taken away, is unacceptable news. We don't want violence in any form, please, Bayelsans. Then coming to your question, I think this process is very, very good. If we have a way, we should have this staggered electoral process so that we'll be able to police the electoral process, especially election day. Very good. If the elections, all the governorship elections will take place today, you know, the tension in the country will be more serious. And again, it will be easier for funny characters to cause problems. But now, you can move in policemen from River State, from Akwa Ibom, from Cross River, Edo State, from Delta, move in to secure Bayelsa State. If it is the election of Edo State, move in policemen from other states, because Nigeria is even under police, not to talk about election duties. So I support this very process of conducting 4, 5, 6 elections in one day, then fix another one if it is possible. That will save life. Save life is more important than any other thing. So that is my own opinion.
Interesting development, the way you have put it, given room for the security agencies to be able to police elections that are staggered. But you mentioned news from Bayelsa. We've seen a massive deployment from the police in this regard. Are you comfortable with the way and manner deployments have been made, and how proactive police says it's been in the days leading to this exercise?
The most important thing that gave me that confidence is that yesterday we saw the phone numbers of those who are to call, or people to call, if you either the Commissioner of Police, the DIG, and all that. So we want more information like that. For coming out to say, you should call this office, you should call this number, you should call this number, that is one of the ways the police and all the security agencies, they have proved to us that they are sincere, and we hope that they are sincere. After today, we don't want to hear stories that the police or the security agencies assisted citizens to run away with ballot boxes or escape with materials and all that. Unfortunately, in this country, we have not tried. We have not tried political offenders, those who come during the election process, those who run away with ballot boxes or security men involved in this. No trial. No trial. So these are some of the things that the media should also follow up. There was incident there in Sabama. Who was involved? Follow up that matter. Media houses should ensure that journalists follow up such cases to the court. If the cases are not going to court, ask questions. The whole electoral process, even whether it is we are managing it or not, the media should also play that role of following up cases to the court. Violent cases, attacks on innocent citizens. We are not seeing any trial. No trial at all. Was it Ghost that took part in that crime? They say it is a Nigerian factor. And that is why even INEC, if they don't follow up such cases, people are doubting INEC. Sometimes when INEC will say Nigerians are not appreciating what they are doing, you are not pursuing any trial. The trials we are seeing is the one of bringing big lawyers to come and shake hand and smile in the name of malpractice or in the name of senior lawyers, bringing them on national TV to sleep and enjoy snoring. We want retrial. The grassroots crimes, political crimes, where are the trials? When the trials are not there, INEC will doubt you. Police will doubt you because you arrested people. Where are the court? Show us the court processes. None. So sometimes when I see this, for example, the last electoral Supreme Court and all that, and you see all the big lawyers with the heavy bags come and be showing that we have not seen for 3 years after your daughter's wedding. They are just fooling us. That is what the lawyers are doing. Why not prosecute those people who took materials from Sagbama now, for example, yesterday? Who are the people that committed the crime? No trial? All over the country, when things happen like that, you don't see all these things. The only thing is we are collating results, the results, and we are going to the electoral tribunal, and this and that. Is that the trial? Is that what to make an institution strong? No.
All right, you're asking for prosecution of election offenders. That's a rhetoric that has also been replayed over the years. The police is saying that it doesn't have the right to prosecution and that is INEC's responsibility. Whether or not it's too much work for INEC to handle is also another conversation that we must have. But let's quickly return to the field and find out what's happening there. It's now about 15 minutes before 8 o'clock. Sarah Ayeku is live for us in Yenagua. Sarah, what's the update where you are?
The patrol is still ongoing, particularly from the police command headquarters here in Yenagua, the state capital. So we see that a lot of police officers have been going out of the command headquarters to the various polling units to ensure that they safeguard this election. And to make the last-minute trip to the various polling units, we know that the election here will start by 8:30 a.m. And so what you see now is that the sun is up, as against what we saw a couple of minutes ago when it was just a bit hazy, chilly, and foggy for us here in Bayelsa State. So we hope that since the sun is up, it's an indication that any moment from now, elections will be in top gear. And we're hoping that the 16 candidates, of course, will be itching to see who eventually wins the trophy. That's according to what the voters will decide today.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to that as well. Congratulations. You now have the sun to work. We hope it doesn't, become hotter than you can bear. Abimbola, what's happening there in Owerri? Any updates from the last time we spoke?
Yes, Nifemi, the past few minutes, we've seen vehicles conveying election materials and, of course, INEC ad hoc officials, heading to the various polling units in the state. And if you can see behind me, We have security officials on the road there, of course, trying to ensure that everyone moving on the road are people who should be on the road at this time. So also, a lot of people have said that the outcome or the success of this poll, of course, is crucial to Nigeria's democracy. So we want to see the expectations are high as the eyes are on the electoral officers and, of course, security agencies to see what they would do differently this time to ensure that the election is credible, free and fair. You would recall that in days leading up to this exercise, a lot of people have been talking about security situation. I've been dominating conversations with people trying to review events that happened in the last election where we had violence, ballot box snatching, and all of that. So people really want to know what the electoral body will be doing differently this time, and of course, security agencies. So we hope all that they have said, will come to play as they planned this time around. In another 10-15 minutes, of course, the exercise will begin, and then we'll be able to give you updates as events unfold from here in Imo.
Abimbola in Owerri, Sarah in Yenagua. Hopefully the accreditation and voting can begin in a couple of minutes. We'll be back with you when that happens. Thank you for the update this morning. We're back in the studio here in Abuja. Mr. Uche, I was finding out earlier if there's a thin line between over-militarizing the process and also ensuring peace in volatile places.
Well, there is nothing like militarization of the election. The primary responsibility of government is security and welfare of citizens. That's a constitutional provision, Section 14 sub 2B of the 1999 Constitution as altered. So you need to ensure that people are safe. And we are in a society where desperate politicians resort to self-help. And they adopt Machiavellian principle, end justifies the means. Let me just win at all cost. Because we play a zero-sum game. Winner takes all. So Nifemi becomes a governor today. All your colleagues here will have to file in, application to see you. You suddenly become a very big person. Meanwhile, even if the opposition, your closest rival, lost to you by 1 vote, you become a maximum ruler. You get all the perks of office. He has no mitigating factor to compensate him. I don't know if you understand my drift. Look at all those who contested against President Tinubu in 2023. They spent billions. None of them, none of the frontline candidates could have spent anything less than 1 billion and above. But where is that money? Another, maybe only God knows how much they spend on litigation. From the Court of Appeal to Supreme Court, there is even one that went abroad, another litigations there and all of that. So I'm just giving you background of why politicians are desperate. And if they can shoot their way to power in a manner of civilian coup, they don't care. All they care about is that trophy, is that victory that they so much long to have. And our system hasn't matured to that level where you trust the institutions and people allow things to happen normally. Now you have in the Electoral Act provisions against electoral violence, but they are observed in breach. I write for the Punch newspaper. I've done a number of articles on, even analyzing the electoral laws and all of that. The question you ask, Nifem, is how many people have been prosecuted even after the 2023 general elections? And unfortunately, if the party of the person who causes violence wins, the governor could simply file a nulli prosecute. And the DPP or the Attorney General sees to it that those people, the charges are dropped against them and they walk out free. Meanwhile, they could have killed, they could have maimed, they could have destroyed property and all of that. So the challenge is prevention is better than cure. So you don't want to leave things to chances. So if it takes 40,000 to effectively police a state to ensure that no single life is lost, I don't think it's too much. Because our political class haven't demonstrated, to play by the rule. People engage in competitive rigging. It is believed that if I don't rig, my opponent will rig. So I don't want to be outraged. So prepare for any eventuality. And I would just enjoy that it's not just the figures. We see police and security agencies throwing out figures, 30,000, 40,000. Who does the counting? Who does the counting?
Are you doubting that the...
I am doubting.
Oh, you're doubting the numbers?
Sure, I am.
That's another new level of doubt. But you seem to have painted a picture such that, the political class wield so much power, such that they can get away with many things. For instance, we are having off-cycle elections because litigations, dragged the election result to court, and then elections were won back in court. But how do you think this issue can be resolved? Because if somebody has more power, and then even the institution can do little or nothing to effect the law, then what's the way forward in that regard?
So let me just quickly paint a scenario for you of what the status quo is. You arrest a culprit, someone trying to foment violence or engaging in an act of disrupting the polls. So you arrest him. Meanwhile, police, DSS, security agents are mobilized from different parts of the country to go to Bayelsa, to go to Kogi and Imo. Now, imagine someone from Kwara is the one that arrested the culprit in Bayelsa. Tomorrow, he leaves back to his base. And after, is the IPO, he's supposed to be the IPO, investigating police officer. But he has to go back because it's not posted to Bayelsa. It was only posted to Bayelsa for election purpose, which is like 72 hours, short duty. So he goes back. Meanwhile, this person is behind the bars. And it does not even lie with the police to take the person to court. For election, what the law says is that the police will investigate after the arrest has been made and pass the case file to INEC for prosecution. Why do you have to do that? Why can't the police who made the arrest, who did the investigation, be made to also prosecute? So that is number one snag. Number two is that now INEC receives this case file and press charges. And of course, when you allege criminal allegation, has to be proven beyond reasonable doubt. So it's not sufficient to say we arrested him in Nebe and he was brought to Yanagwa and that this is what we found on him. The point is, when you put the person to court, you must have a witness to back up the claim that this person actually committed the crime. Meanwhile, the person who effected the arrest is from Kwara. He's gone back to Kwara. Who pays his way to go to Yenegua court to give testimony? Will he pay from his own pocket? Will the police authority be willing to fund his travel and logistics, accommodation? And sometimes, for those who have ever had case in court, a case may be scheduled for tomorrow. You have arrived today. You get to the court and they said the judge is not sitting. Oh, there is a conference of judges in Jigawa and he has gone. So this one goes back to Kwara. Meanwhile, maybe it's even the victim's family that funded his way to come. And the court process is never quick. I mean, if you have even cases like this, there is no timeline. While there is a timeline for filing of election, pre-election matter or post-election matter in court, there is no timeline for disposing such cases. So this case can drag on for 3-5 years. The person who won the election has served us his time. The case is still in court because we do not have timeline for disposing post-election post-election criminal matter. The court will only adjudicate for 180 days for cases that has to do with challenging the outcome of the election, which are not the same thing as prosecuting somebody who committed offense during the election. I don't know whether you make the distinction. So, Nifem is challenging Jide Ojo's victory. He has 180 days to prove his case in court. But one other person who was caught, maybe trying to buy vote or trying to foment trouble, is charged to court it may take 6 months for police to even send the case file to INEC. Then the INEC will look at prioritizing. They sometimes don't have budget for prosecution. So at the end of the day, you file this case, the case drags on, the witnesses are not readily available. Maybe the other witness is a core member who was the presiding officer at that place where the event happened. 2 months after the election, he has graduated, he's working somewhere,
and
or he has jackpot to Canada. So, this has the snacks. And that's why INEC itself, of all the recommendations of Justice Muhammadu Lawal Uwe's committee of 2008 for the unbundling of INEC, the one that INEC has subscribed to from that time is the being relieved of this electoral offenses prosecution, because they feel that it's a distraction. That's why they said they back Electoral Offenses Commission. And unfortunately, in the last 9th National Assembly, I think House of Reps or Senate passed that Electoral Offenses Commission bill, but there was no concurrence by the other chamber, and that's why it became dead on arrival. We don't know whether this 10th National Assembly will revisit that Electoral Offenses Commission. But even if that bill sees the light and is passed and assented to by the president, what if it's not well funded?
Let's take this conversation to Lagos, where Mr. Evah is standing by. You raised the issue of prosecution earlier and the need to set a precedent, particularly with electoral offenses. How do you think this can be improved on? On election day, for instance, in Bayelsa, Igbo, and Kogi states?
Well, I like what he raised about desperate politicians and winner takes all. I believe that maybe because of the greediness on the part of our politicians, they refuse to adjust some of the ideas over the time. We continue to ask them to put into the electoral law. This winner takes all syndrome is very, very dangerous. It is affecting our progress even as a nation in the country. When 3 or 4 persons contest election and with the winner, the winning party, everything, you are taking everything because you are the winner. Others, those who failed, will be fighting, will be struggling to pull that winner down. Why don't we have an arrangement? Why don't we have this new, maybe just try this arrangement? If the winner is the governor or the president, let the party, the runner-up or whatever, let that position go to the vice president or the vice chairman or vice local government chairman or the governor. If the winner take all syndrome continue, this pulling each other down and making sure that if I don't get there, it is do or die, maybe it will be managed. The situation is getting worse and worse. Winner takes all. What do we do to accommodate other politicians, other parties to come? This is our country. If you lose the election, let us see how they can be. Maybe if it is there in law. Although during the the Second Republic, after the military rule, 1979, we know there was this idea that Shehu Shagari brought, and Shehu Shagari brought in some UPN members, some PRP, GNPP, and brought them into his government in the name of unity government. But if there is a law that will assist so that this infighting or fighting, before the president or the governor will sit down to say, let me manage one economic policy or whatever policy, the fighting against that government is affecting the masses. That is that for what my friend is saying in Abuja, my own contribution. Now, back to the governorship election in Bayelsa, especially like for Bayelsa. And again, I'm talking to the rest of the country. These do or die political bigwigs, I think it is time for us as a nation to look for the children of the founding fathers of this nation. Look for the founding fathers of states to address politicians, the do or die, sponsoring gangs, violence and all that. Let them know. They were not there when the states were created. They were not there when this nation independent struggle was carried out. Now some people who are doing, I ask them, sometimes I see them at the airport, I ask them, you are doing do or die or this and that. Did you know when the country independent, during independent 1960, 1959, 1958, where were you? You just come, you have one political funny power. You are now saying this election, this and that, and you are provoking, causing problem. In Bayelsa, I am telling the politicians now, don't create any problem and kill people today. When we are struggling for this state, to create this state, I was the public secretary of the Intergenerational Congress. During the Banifo panel, moving around to create Bayelsa state, some people will just appear. We are now the political leaders. We are the ones that own the structures. Yes, when I see when I see some people, I'm in charge of the structure of the state. The state is in my pocket, this and that. Where were you when people were struggling, running around to create these states in the country? Where were you when people, elders and others were running around to create Kaduna State? Where were you? Where were you when people are running around to create Imo State? When the likes of Mbakwe in those days, people struggle. Their children are just quiet. What I'm suggesting, when election time comes, national election time comes, we should look for Nnamdi Azikwe's son. You see them very simple, so humble. We look for Shiva Bafumi Awolowo children. Come and talk to these people. Their parents were not involved in the creation of this country, the political creation of this country. But they do as if they are the owners, they are the countries in my pocket. We will look for people like Shagari children. We have to look for Ahmadu Bello children. We have to look for Tafa Balewa children. Look at Tafa Balewa's son. Contested the election, so humble. In those days, I think about 20 years ago or 10 years ago, Tafa Balewa's son. You see them humble. Look at the Abuja we are seeing today. The idea of Murtala Muhammad. See Murtala Muhammad's children. So humble. Then some other people will appear there in Abuja. This Abuja, I will tell them that this Abuja is this and that. Where were you when the parents of, when people sleep day and night to create this state, Ogun State, Ondo State? Where were you? Olimulu Adam in those days. Are they fancy them in those days? Creation of Ondo State, this and that. Some people just appear in Ondo State. I am now the governor. I have the structure. Hey, you got this and that. People need to talk to these people. Sit them down. Where were you when these states were created? Better don't burn the state because
time changes and then, a new generation comes up and apparently new leaders have to emerge and all of that. But I want us to speak to how
this new generation need to sit down.
Indeed. I agree with you.
Nigeria to any political power with anybody.
Let's talk about that education an enlightenment for a bit. We saw in the Electoral Act of 2022 how the timeline for campaigns, was increased. Would you say that that has helped to enlighten the voter to understand what the issues are and make the best decision on election day?
No. People just see it as just to fulfill all righteousness. And it doesn't. I am bringing ideas. Let us look for the founding fathers of Nigerian nation, the Awolowo family and all that. Ask them to come and talk to the people. Nobody from anywhere. Whether professor with all these 700 pages for the lecture of disease and people start drinking tea is not helping this situation. What do? Bring children of founding fathers of this nation. Bring children of founding fathers of Bayelsa State, River State. Look at, for example, River State. Do you know that Bayelsa that you are seeing today, the founding fathers, great men like Jide, he's still alive. Founding father also of the old River State. Some people, when I look at them, the way they play their politics in my state, Bayelsa, I say, what is worrying these people? People like Alfred, His Royal Highness now, Jide, so humble. Pioneer governor of River State, old River State. Pioneer military governor. No arrogancy. Simple life. People who don't even know when he was a lieutenant commander. Today they are behaving as say, we are in charge of the state. We are this state, we will do what we like. You cannot do whatever you like in Bayelsa State. Medford Okoro, the first civilian governor of old River State, is from Bayelsa. So Bayelsa that has created, has produced, the first doctorate holder as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now we are having this election. Politicians should respect themselves. The former president is in town. If they want to cause this their funny thing, they should just talk to their conscience. The former president, Goodluck Jonathan, is in town. Let me stop this my bad, dirty habit. They should respect themselves. We don't want blood flow in Bayelsa State. If we don't talk to their conscience like this, they will just be using their phone. Yes, make sure that 2-3 boats don't move from that area. That place is not my stronghold. They should stop it. It is the state where Jide come from. Pioneer governor of old River State. The military governor, civilian, Medford Okoro, from Bayelsa State. So politicians should respect themselves. That we have produced great men in this country. And don't turn Bayelsa State to state where blood will be flowing because you want to be governor of the state. We will not allow you. Because if we allow you, tomorrow, your children will also come back and say, my father did this and that, and nothing happened. So let me carry on with what my father did. After 20, 30 years, we have to stop it now. Police should not give them breathing space.
All right.
Police should tell them.
It's all right, Mr. Evah. I think I hear you very clearly.
Dr. Goodluck Jonathan is in town. Stop any nonsense violence. Respect the state. Respect the symbol of the international community. Goodluck Jonathan is now a symbol of international. So don't create problem in Yanagwa or any other part of Bayelsa State.
The stakeholders, we saw them sign a peace deal a few days ago, and we are hoping that they will also, act and work by the rule, and also stay committed to their commitment to that particular peace deal. We're back to Bayelsa, where Uche Okoro is standing by. Uche, where are you this morning, and what's the update where you are?
Right now, I am in Unit 4, Ward 6 of Kolokoma, Opokoma local government area of Bayelsa State. And right behind me is the polling unit where the governor is expected to cast his vote. As you can see behind me, the electoral officials and the election materials have been deployed. In fact, they arrived here before we did, indicating that this particular polling unit has experienced early arrival of materials. So we are expecting the commencement of accreditation and voting at this particular unit, Unit 4, Ward 6, Kolokuma, Opokuma local government area, where Governor Doye Diri is expected to vote. All around me, you can see the people are beginning to gather. Crowds are beginning to gather, expecting accreditation to take place. To my left, you can see the members of the community are beginning to make their way out of their residence to approach this polling unit to cast their vote. So the mood here is peaceful. Everywhere is calm. The expectation is that the early arrival of materials here will be the same experience across the 8 local government areas of Bayelsa State. More than 2,000 polling units where voting is expected to take place today. So we expect and hope that this is going to translate and be the experience of all Bayelsa. So that's the situation here at Unit 4, Ward 6, Kolokuma, Opokuma local government area, where the election officials are just getting started, are just beginning to get themselves set up to begin the election proper, the actual exercise of voting.
It's good news that election materials and election officers are there in time. Is it clear precisely when accreditation and voting is expected to begin?
It's supposed to begin at 8 a.m. This is about 10 minutes after 8 a.m. So it is too early to say it is late. So we can't say for now that they are late. It's just 10 minutes past 8 a.m. I believe that any moment from now it is going to commence. You can see just behind me. I'll step away from the camera now so you can see. That's the particular polling unit where the governor is expected to vote. You can see there that it is about to commence. You can also see voters there. Trying to look at the voters register that has been posted on the wall of that building. They're trying to confirm their names on the voter register ahead of the commencement of accreditation using the BVAS machines. So I believe that in just a few moments, the exercise will begin proper here where I am in Kolokuma, Opokuma.
How many people are registered to vote in this polling unit? And can you tell if enough people are trooping out already as we speak?
Yeah, it looks like there's going to be, from my preliminary observation and from what you probably can see on your screen as well, I think there's going to be a large turnout. I've also approached the ad hoc staff in there to inquire about the number of persons on their register, but they've told me to hang on, that they just arrived, they are trying to get themselves together, and that in just a moment they would have that information for me. But I can tell you that Kolokuma Opokuma has the lowest number of registered voters in Bayelsa State. There are 8 local governments. Kolokuma has the least, about 66,000, 65,000 and the fraction. So that's the lowest. So I don't think they would have much of issues in terms of crowd control here. Of persons who will be coming out to cast their votes, actual persons on the line. Just about 65,000, the lowest across Bayelsa State. But in this particular polling unit, in just a few moments, I would return to speak to the presiding officer there, the ad hoc staff, and see if he can provide me with that information as regards the specific figure at the governor's polling unit. But I can also see that there are more than one polling units here. Apart from this one where the governor is expected to vote, there's just behind me here, it's another polling unit. Okay, and also on my far right, that's also another polling unit. So a number of polling units here, not just a particular one where the governor is expected to vote. So I believe that in 30 minutes, between 30 minutes to 1 hour, this place is going to be swarming with voters who are ready to begin the exercise, accreditation, and voting here in Kolokuma. So far, so good. Everywhere is peaceful. So far, so good.
Hold on for a minute, Uche. My guest in Lagos is from Bayelsa. Let me get his thoughts on what's happening in Kolokuma, Opokuma. You heard Mr. Evah that election materials and officers came in quite early, even though we are waiting precisely to see how soon election will begin. Okay, I'm told you are an Ijoman from Delta, but speak to us about how politically aware the people in this area are, and what's the political behavior like on election day?
Well, we are peaceful people. I will also appeal that your cameraman in Brass, Basamabri, We want to know what is happening along the Atlantic Ocean. Very, very important. It takes about 1 hour or 1.5 hours from Yanagwa down to Brass, Nebe. We want the reporter from that area. For the past 1 month, 2 months, we experienced violence from that axis of the Atlantic Ocean. You get to Brass, you see the beautiful beach. You know that we are special people. God gave fishes and all that. Sharks and all that, they are there in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, that area that I know your reporter, since he arrived in Yanagwa, is aware of the information that the violence that are coming from that area, Nebe, Brass, the cameras, if there are cameras there, 4, 5 channels and all this, your TVC, all the CNN should go to those areas that I know security report will say we are likely to see some violence. But I am assuring you that nobody will die today. There will be peaceful, everywhere will be peaceful, just like Olokuma Pokoma. But the Nebe area, Ogbia area, Sagbama area, the ugly incident yesterday was from Sagbama area. My own area is Electoral, Ekremon local government. Ekremon local government. I'm from the same community with the late General Azazi, Electoral community. Yesterday, I spoke to them. Look, this is the community of General Azazi, General 9. Respect yourself. We have produced prominent people. Sigambele, who is also a FIFA member, is from that community. Don't create anything that the international community will say, oh, this is where Dr. Sigambele come from. CAF member, medical director, look at what is happening in his village. Don't try it. And we have spoken to our people. Don't allow these politicians to destroy your life. Their children are not there carrying weapons. Their children are not there to carry weapons to threaten people. And most of them, when you carry this weapon and all this and that, at the end of the day, they don't know you. They only be proud that you are the structure. When my structure, this Nigerian politicians need deliverance. So I think the Bayelsa situation, we are going to experience peaceful election. And I am telling them now, the former president is in town. Respect yourself. Respect the global icon we have produced for Nigeria. And be peaceful. The winner, people know the winner. These politicians, these contestants, all the contestants, they are politicians over the years. We know them. So there is no way anybody is going to do something.
I agree with you, Mr. Evah, that
it's very easy for the voting trend.
I agree with you that the former president is an icon of peace, given the very historic call he made to former President Buhari when he won that election. But quickly, let's return to Bayelsa State, where Uche is standing by. Uche, walk us through what the security presence is on your way to the polling unit, and can you tell if there is any security operative at the polling unit where you are?
So far, security deployment seems to be so far so good, I would say. From Yanagwa, the state capital, to Pokoma, it's about 30 to 45 minutes drive. And from Yanagwa to this point where I'm standing, we encountered 3 military checkpoints. They were all quite civil. Even after identifying ourselves as journalists, they still went the extra mile to confirm our identities. We explained that we are essential workers and we are on election duty, and we have been accredited to move around. And after a few minutes, they let us go, and we encountered a second one and a third one before we got to this point. At some point between Yenegua and Pokoma, we had to drive through the east-west road. But the security checkpoints along the east-west road so far aren't interfering with the process. The checkpoints along the east-west road seem not to be functional, even though the police officers are there. So far it's been just, we've had encounters with just the military personnel who are mounting checkpoints across various parts of the state so far. So far I would say that it seems like the security agencies have it covered. For now, I would say they have it covered. There's been no incident apart from yesterday when INEC confirmed that one of its SPOs was abducted at the Amasoma jetty while on his way to his place of assignment, waiting to board a boat. So I think that's the only, so far, to the best of my knowledge, the only security incidents that INEC has confirmed: the abduction of one of its officials on his way to his place of assignment, election duty, waiting to board a boat at the Amasoma jetty. Aside that, it's been a quite an uneventful election morning in Bayelsa State so far.
It seems I saw a civil defense official walk past behind you earlier. What's the security presence like at these polling units?
Okay, well, polling units, I can see a number of police officers, even though I don't know how far you can see, but if you can see just behind me there, I can see a couple of police officers who are right there inside the polling units. I've also cited officers of the Federal Road Safety Corps. So far, it's just been scanty presence of police personnel at the polling units, which is not surprising. Normally, you don't have a heavy deployment or heavy presence of security personnel at polling units. So I'm not surprised. It's the same thing that's going on here in Kolokoma or Pokoma. So just about a couple of police officers. I think so far, from my calculation, it is 2 police officers per polling unit. If you also look at this other polling unit here, this is another polling unit just behind me. If you see a bit to my right, you would be able to see a couple of police officers sitting inside that polling unit. So it is, so far, it appears to be 2 police officers per polling unit. It is not conventional to have anything more than this at a polling unit, except such a polling unit reports crisis, or there is report of crisis. Then security personnel here or other voters can call for reinforcement, can make a distress call, and then there will be a heavier deployment at polling units. But aside that, it is just two police officers per polling units that I can see here, and I believe it's the same situation across Bayelsa State. So far, no incidents has warranted heavier deployment of security personnel. You can just see it, just as I'm speaking to you, you can just see many more residents of the state are beginning of this local government are beginning to make their way out to begin the exercise of accreditation and voting. You can see more residents beginning to troop out in their numbers to cast their votes, trying to locate their various polling units. It is just 2 polling units here, so these crowds that you can see on your screen now are certainly making their way to other polling units to cast their votes. Hopefully they expect that the early arrival of men and material here is the same thing that they would meet when they arrive at their polling units. Nifemi.
Stand by, Uche. I'll be back with you in a minute. Perhaps you want to also find out for us from the INEC officials what's happening there and why accreditation is yet to begin. Let's return to the studio here in Abuja. You heard our man there in Bayelsa. Materials officials are there, but voting is yet to begin in earnest. Quite commendable with the arrival of INEC officials, but it seems we'll have to see what happens at 8:30.
Yes, statutorily, poll officials are supposed to be at their duty post an hour to the commencement of vote. So for INEC to score a pass mark, at all of the polling units, poll officials should have been there by 7:30 to set up. It's not like getting there at 7:30 means you start attending to customers to voters. No. What it means is you get there 1 hour. That's what the guideline says. In that period, you demarcate, you look for furniture, seating, chairs, tables, ensure proper spacing, cordon off the polling unit area, because it could be a public school, and INEC does not have a customized polling unit. That's one of the fallout. It's going to be very expensive to build 176,846 polling units. It's not cost effective because you don't do election every day. So INEC had to depend on the magnanimity and benevolence of public schools or Ministry of Education, as it were, because most of the elections take place at public schools, primary, secondary, maybe town hall, and all of that. So, and that's why you know, your one of the ladies, I don't know whether the one in Owerri or the one in Yenagoa, I was talking about, you know, whether persons with disability will be factored into this arrangement. Because
INEC has promised that, you know.
But they have always promised.
Braille materials and then...
No, it's not even about that. Access, physical access to the polling unit is what I'm talking about.
The Electoral Act permits that they can be assisted by an aide to vote in that regard.
No, you are not permitted by... the only person that could be allowed, that is allowed by law to be assisted, not to vote on his behalf, but to assist.
Of course, to assist them
in their choice
to get to the
blind.
cubicle. Yeah, exactly.
Is the blind. But I'm talking of physical access to the polling unit. Okay. So someone on crutches, someone on wheelchair, how does he will himself or herself to the place where he's supposed to cast his or her vote? So what I want to see is commendable, but we should not use an isolated instance of the governor's polling units being ready to judge overall.
Absolutely.
But assuming without considering that we have reports that, yes, they are all waiting for voters and to start the voting process by 8:30, that will be a very high score for INEC. But beyond that is when you now come to physical access for persons with disability. Will the poll officials also eat the guidelines that says vulnerable people should be given what is called priority voting? And who are these people who are supposed to have priority voting? Pregnant women, nursing mothers, persons with disability, old people, you know, octogenarians, septuagenarians, you know, and nonagenarians who may want to. You don't expect them to go and kill. So old people, pregnant women, nursing mothers, persons with disability, whether it's a deaf or a blind or someone on crutches or someone on wheelchair, these are categories of people that are supposed to enjoy what is called priority voting. So whether they come late or they come early, they are not supposed to queue. Or if they are going to queue, there should be a special queue for them. And I should also add, the Electoral Act also says that in parts of the country where religious sensitivities are taken cognizance of, there should be separate queues for
men and
women and men.
Indeed.
But for the rest of the country where it doesn't matter, people can queue together. But like in northern parts of the country, you should also have separate queue for women. And I'm happy with what the footage that is being heard, that the list of voters has already been pasted.
Just a minute, Mr. Ojo. We seem to have pictures here from polling unit 004 in the Ofu local government area of Kogi State. It's apparent that voters are already on the queue here, speaking to the fact that perhaps accreditation and voting may have begun in earnest in some parts of Kogi.
And this is exactly 8:30, which is quite commendable.
Absolutely. And this is what INEC promised before this election, early arrival of the officials and materials. If that happens, the people seem also ready to begin in earnest. Sometimes, you know, when we talk about the issue of logistics and why materials arrive late, you begin to wonder if we did not have enough time to prepare in the first place. But this is an isolated case where INEC is focusing only on 3 states. In addition to the resident electoral commissioner, there are about 9 others who are called supporting commissioners in this election. Would you say that there is no excuse, you know, for the agencies involved, since it's just 3 states we're looking at?
It's not just because there are 3 states, it's because INEC is well-resourced. Some of us who are into advocacy will always say, oh, this institution of governance should be well-resourced. And what do we mean by being well-resourced? Personnel, logistics, and funding. So INEC just got 18 billion last week from the supplementary budget. Of course, not the entire 18 billion is meant for this election. But what
hold that thought for a minute, Mr. Ojo. We also have visuals from Kaba in Kogi State, where there's an apparent roadblock You can see officials of the Federal Road Safety Corps there. The police mentioned yesterday that there will be curfew between midnight and 6 p.m. and that those using these corridors within the states where election will hold might have to take alternative routes. And that's perhaps what's happening here. Vehicles are not going to be allowed through the states on election day. We'll talk about how, the economic implication of that shortly. But you were talking about the 18 billion naira that has been approved for INEC.
So 18 billion in the supplementary budget that the president signed a couple of days back. And according to INEC chairman, not the entire sum is meant to prosecute this election, but it's also to pay allowances that have been due to staff, which were not captured in their 2023 budgets and all of that. So INEC is well resourced. It's not like they don't have enough funds. All the things. In fact, did you know that my calculation about 2023 election, INEC got close to 500 billion, 478 billion total 2022-2023, because INEC first got 305 billion in 2022 budget, an additional 178 billion in 2023 budget. Whether the entire sum was released to INEC is a different ballgame. I need to make that very clear, because appropriation is not released. you know that. So you may end up getting only 70% of what was budgeted for you. But at least on paper, what we do know, which is in public domain, is INEC was appropriated 305 billion for 2022, then additional 178 billion in 2023 budget. So it's only the commission that can speak to how much of that they got. But aside from that, the point is they are well resourced. Since 2011, after the electoral, after the constitutional alteration of 2010, which put INEC on first line charge on Consolidated Revenue Fund, which is what state judiciary and state houses of assembly are still at loggerheads with their governor to implement that. INEC was lucky. Since 2011, anything they want to do, the funding has never been a problem. Now, I must flag one thing: attitude. Attitude is everything. You may have all the resources. If the political class will still not allow for free, fair election, they will undermine the process. Because the start, from my own experience, and I've been around for a while, I've observed all the 7 general elections in Nigeria. I've also had privilege of observing elections across many continents, from USA to Africa, in Egypt, in Uganda, and in Ghana. My experience is that the attitude matters, and you cannot legislate attitude. Now, there are some INEC officials who are ad hoc, who may think this is an opportunity for me to make some money. So they make themselves available to politicians who may want to induce them to do some shady things. That is attitude. You can't legislate that. They have signed oath of loyalty and oath of allegiance, or whatever they do sign. But what if they go to this election with the mindset that they need to make some house box?